Well, good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm so excited to be here at the incredible Holy Child Catholic Elementary School right in downtown Edmonton to highlight some of the great steps that we're taking to help support Alberta students and families. I want to provide my acknowledgement and thanks to Edmonton Catholic Schools Board Chair Sandra Palazzo and Marilyn Dennis, Chair, or is it President? Chair? President, my apologies, of the Alberta School Boards Association, and as well Christine Sampson, principal here at the amazing school, and the remarkable staff for hosting us in this wonderful venue and allowing us to do today's announcement here. As we all know, Alberta schools are seeing unprecedented student increase. Since 2020, Alberta schools have welcomed nearly 89,000 new students. While this fast growth is indeed proof of Alberta's strong economy and our welcoming communities, it also presents many challenges for our education system. Today, I'm happy to share that our government will be making a historic $9.8 billion taxpayer investment into education. I am confident that this investment will help deliver a strong and common sense education. Here's how it will do that. Firstly, we will increase funding to historic new levels. For this year, taxpayer investment will reach a record $9.8 billion, which represents an increase of $426 million or 4.5% from last year. This historic investment not only supports enrollment growth, but also raises grant rates and puts more money into the classroom by giving school boards the flexibility to make decisions that best serve their students. More than 98% of education's budget flows directly to our school boards, who can deliver services to students. Our goal is to drive as many dollars as possible into the classroom, and we give our boards maximum flexibility in how they manage their resources. This means that every school day, approximately $49 million is invested into our students' future. That's the scale of our commitment to delivering a first-rate education system for Alberta's children. Secondly, we are increasing taxpayer investment by $1.1 billion to fund the large number of new students coming into our schools. That $1.1 billion will be allocated over the next 3 years and will help our school boards hire over 4,000 additional teachers, educational assistants, and support staff. It will alleviate pressure on our classrooms, help manage class sizes, and ensure that every student has access to a quality education. But that's not all. Third, we are changing the way that we fund our school boards. We've listened closely to our teachers, trustees, and other partners, and are responding by changing the way we fund our schools. 30% of funding will be based on the current year, and 70% of funding will be based on enrollment projections for the future year as provided by our school boards. Moving to this 2-year funding model will give growing boards more funding sooner while protecting rural schools with declining numbers. Fourth, we are also investing to give students extra help when it's needed. We know that every student has unique needs, which is why we work with school boards to make sure they are able to give students extra help and support if they need it. That's one reason why we're boosting funding for complex classrooms by 20%, making $55 million available this year to support kids who need more help. This increased funding will allow schools to hire more educational assistants and bring in specialists like counselors, interpreters, and psychologists. In addition, other grants that support students who need some extra help are also getting a funding boost. More specifically, program unit funding, the English as an additional language grant, the Refugee Student Grant, the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit Student Grant, the School Nutrition Grant, the Transportation Grant, and others will all be increased by over 2%. Even more, we are also investing $40 million over the next 3 years to help students learn to read, write, and help them learn math. In July, I announced that every student from kindergarten to grade 3 would have their reading, writing, and math abilities screened to help identify students who might need more help. Our partners have told us that we need to make sure dedicated funding is available to help them hire staff so that those students who need extra help are able to receive it. This funding responds to their feedback and will make sure that more students can receive the help that they need. In total, more than $1.6 billion will be allocated this year alone to help those students who need it, making sure that every child, no matter their needs, receives the education they deserve. I'm proud to say through Budget 25, we are making another historic investment in education to address growing student population and to deliver a world-class education. Of course, we can't do that alone, and we can't do that without the incredible work of our school board partners and all of the amazing teachers, educational assistants, and other staff who work tirelessly every day to support our kids. So in closing, I want to thank them specifically for the great work that they do every single day. Thank you again for joining me today, and it's now my pleasure to invite up to the podium the chair of Edmonton Catholic School, Sandra Palazzo.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, everyone. Minister Nicolaides, Alberta School Board Association President Marilyn Dennis, Executive Director Dr. Aboud from the Alberta School Board Association, Chief Superintendent Anderson, guests, and Principal Sampson, thank you to you and your staff for graciously hosting us today. On behalf of Edmonton Catholic Schools, Board of Trustees and Administration, it is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome the Honourable Minister of Education, Demetrios Nicolaides, to Holy Catholic Elementary Catholic High School, and express appreciation for the opportunity to provide remarks regarding Budget 2025, which recognizes the reality of the incredible growth we're experiencing here at Edmonton Catholic Schools. As educators, it is our goal to ensure that every student has the opportunity to receive an education that meets their needs and empowers them to reach their full potential. With Alberta's continued growth, families are arriving in search of opportunity and the promise of a bright future. As our province welcomes them, so does Edmonton Catholic Schools. This year, our division reached a remarkable milestone. More than 50,000 students are enrolled in our classrooms. Families are choosing us in ever-increasing numbers, and every day we continue to welcome new students. Over the past 3 years, our division has grown by nearly 7,000 students, a 15.5% increase. This incredible growth reflects the confidence that families have in the excellent Catholic education we provide. But with this growth come challenges. More students means a greater need for school spaces, teachers and support staff, and resources to ensure that every child receives the excellent education and supports they deserve. For these reasons, our Board of Trustees has strongly advocated for increased funding, and we're pleased to see this reflected in Budget 2025. This year's budget includes additional funding for classroom complexity and essential programs, recognizing the increased diversity of student needs. Additionally, an increase in the operations and maintenance grant will help us manage rising costs and support the safety and upkeep of our schools. We also welcome the change to the funding formula, reflective of what our board has long advocated for. The shift from the weighted moving average to a 2-year average adjusted enrollment methodology is a welcome improvement, as this change will bring greater stability and help keep pace with the increasing numbers of families choosing a publicly funded Catholic education. In the coming weeks, we'll receive our division's funding profile, which will give us a more clear picture of the full impact of Budget 2025 on Edmonton Catholic Schools. We wish to thank Minister Nicolaides and the Ministry for the engagement with Edmonton Catholic Schools, and we look forward to our continued collaboration and consultation. As always, The students and families we serve remains our priority, as is our steadfast commitment to working with the Alberta government to develop solutions and ensuring every dollar makes a difference in supporting student success. Because as Alberta grows, education becomes ever more critical in building a brighter future for our students, families, and province. Thank you. And it is now my pleasure to invite President Marilyn Dennis from the Alberta School Board Association.
Good morning, everyone. So good to see you. As mentioned, my name is Marilyn Dennis, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Alberta School Boards Association. I am very pleased to be here this morning to bring remarks on behalf of the 61 locally elected public, Catholic, and Francophone school boards from across Alberta. Thank you, Minister Nicolaides, for prioritizing this important investment into the education system. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to Sandra Palazzo, Board Chair of Edmonton Catholic Schools, and the ECSD trustees for hosting us here this morning in this beautiful building, which I learned this morning has been welcoming students since 1914. As the Provincial Association, ASBA has worked closely with our members to identify necessary supports for students in metro, urban, and rural school communities. We continue to see significant enrollment pressures, while also navigating increasingly complex learning needs and rising costs due to inflation, insurance, utilities, and other operational costs. ASBA appreciates the government's recognition of these challenges and these additional investments into public education. More teachers, education assistants, and support staff mean greater capacity to meet students' diverse needs. Additional funding for specialized learning needs, refugee students, English language learners, and mental health services will help to provide the supports Alberta students need in order to be successful. The Alberta School Boards Association has been advocating to government to review the funding formula. We recognize the shift to a 2-year average funding model is intended to help school boards better manage enrollment challenges, whether they are experiencing rapid growth or declining enrollment. And we also acknowledge the additional grants made available for our rural boards in particular. We will work with our members to assess how this change affects overall funding stability and whether additional measures may be needed. ASBA is committed to ongoing dialogue with the government to ensure that all boards, regardless of enrollment trends, are adequately supported. School boards remain dedicated to ensuring students receive high-quality education, and today's announcement is an important step forward. As a school board trustee myself, I know that every trustee in this province is focused on supporting learning environments where every student can thrive. School boards remain committed to working collaboratively with government to implement these funding enhancements effectively, and will carefully review the funding manual and operational funding profiles to further understand the full impact of this budget. We value our strong relationship with Minister Nicolaides and appreciate his ongoing support of Alberta's locally elected school boards as the local voice in our communities. We can think of no better investment than that of public education. It is the heart of our democracy and the cornerstone of our province's prosperity. Thank you.
All right, folks, so we'll move into our Q&A now. Reminder to please use the media mic. It's right to my right over there, to you guys folks' left. One question, one follow-up. Please state your name, your outlet, and who your question is directed towards, and we'll go first to the mic. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sean. I'm Ottawa City News. Question for the minister, please. I think everybody would agree that more education funding is good. The ATA, on the other hand, says this is about $900 million short. They routinely say that Alberta funds students at the lowest per capita in Canada. How do you respond to those criticisms?
Yeah, well, I would say, their numbers are quite dated. I think they're using information from Statistics Canada that goes back to 2020, 2021. There's been obviously a significant budget increase in this budget, in Budget 24, and in Budget 23, so none of those increases are reflected. And I would say our priority to ensure that we are providing adequate funding to our school boards is reflected right here in this announcement today and in Budget 25. Funding to education is at a historic level, $9.8 billion, and slated to rise by $1.1 billion over the next 3 years. In addition to that, our education system is world-class. We hosted a delegation of German ministers of education a couple of years ago who were coming to Alberta to learn how we are so successful in our PISA rankings and other areas. Our latest PISA rankings from 2022 show that Alberta continues to lead Canada in our performance. So I think our education system is strong. There's always room for changes and improvement. And as we're demonstrating today, we're happy to continue to listen to our teachers, our trustees, and other partners to see how we can make it better.
Follow-up?
So as we speak right now, there's 6,000 some education support workers who are not at work. There are some parents who have to stay home with their kids. I realize that's complicated. There's a lot to that, but I think Edmontonians, Albertans are looking at this maybe and saying, okay, this is great, but I literally can't take my kids to school right now. So what would you say to those parents? And what's the solution?
Yeah, I would say that we're hopeful that the striking unions can sit down with their boards and find a way to resolve the impasse. The government of Alberta doesn't negotiate directly with QP in these strikes, and that's left to the boards, who are the direct employer. So we encourage them and everyone to get back to the table and find a path forward as best as possible.
All right, we'll go to the next on the floor. Go ahead.
Hey, Emmanuel Prince-Tovet, Radio-Canada. My question is actually for the school board and Edmonton Catholic. So the minister mentioned historic levels of investment, 4.5% this year in funding increase, but I guess it's barely enough to keep up with inflation, with population, notwithstanding inflation. So do you think it's enough, or do you think you would have liked to see more investment in education to keep up?
So you're asking the question to an educator. So I would say that the more money that we receive, the more welcome we will be to those dollars. That being said, the investment that has been provided thus far is a step in the right direction. The strong advocacy that we, with our board and our administration and those metro boards that we work very closely with, and the rest of the other school boards in Alberta, all asked for an increase in the education in Budget 2025, and we received it. One of the other strong advocacy pieces was the change to the funding formula, and that too has been provided to us. And so the fact that the Minister of Education and the ministry is hearing our voices and they're listening, and we're working collaboratively and in consultation with them, looking for those solutions to ensure that we can provide the opportunities for all students to reach their full potential and success, is definitely a step in the right direction.
Great. Second question for you also, but Minister, you can also hop in if you want to. My colleague mentioned the support staff strike. Should parents be worried that this strike might expand to all teachers before the end of the school year?
So while this is impertinent to Edmonton Catholic, I guess I can say that collective bargaining is dynamic. And so while I can't comment on what's happening with our employee groups, I can say that everyone is invested in staff. And when I speak on behalf of Edmonton Catholic, we're always supportive of our Edmonton Catholic family, and we'll do whatever we have to do to ensure that they receive what they deserve.
So you wanted to? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't say too much. Of course, we're currently in the middle of collective bargaining process with teachers. So I want to make sure that process is able to carry out as it should. I'm happy to point to the investments that we're making in Budget 25 to help, of course, provide more resources to our schools to deal with complexity issues, to help support the hiring of additional staff. And in consequence, of course, we're also making a very significant and aggressive school build program to add more spaces. So I think all of this showcases and demonstrates our commitment to improve the situations in our schools and help ensure that every student's able to receive the best possible education.
Do we have any other questions from the floor? Go ahead.
Eric Bay, Global News. Minister, the funding that you have earmarked for more staff here in this budget, can any of that be used to potentially bridge this gap in the current support workers strike, or is there any money at all that can potentially bridge that gap to sort of meet in the middle and end this labor action?
Yeah, with some of the grants, we do provide very specific direction as to how it can be used. So as an example, so I guess the short answer to your question is a little tricky, I guess, not to be evasive or anything, but I think that the answer would be, maybe. Because the school boards have a lot of deference in terms of managing their own budgets and their own operations. There are some grants, though, as I mentioned, like the Classroom Complexity Grant, where the school boards have to apply to government and tell us exactly what they want to do with the funding, and then we provide it based on their applications. Other funding is just distributed for them to allocate to their schools, and each school board has different methodologies and ways in which they determine how money gets flowed out to schools. So it can be a little complicated.
But I guess to make it clear on my end here, so there is a chance, depending how the school boards want to use it and how the province approves it, that they could decide to use it in that way?
Well, as well, the provincial government does provide direction, of course, when it comes to collective bargaining. As we sit down with collective bargaining with our teachers, and we'll provide direction in terms of mandates that can be obtained. So I'm just hopeful, again, with some of the strikes that are ongoing, that those unions can sit down with their school boards, and I'm confident that can occur and find a way to move forward, because I think we all agree, even the folks who are on strike, I think we all agree that we want to make sure that we're focused on giving the best possible education to children. So I'm hopeful that they can find a way to move forward. Thanks.
All right, we'll go to the lines. Operator, can you please put through the first caller?
Janet French with CBC Edmonton.
Questions for the minister. I'll stay on the topic of education workers. If you're talking about money increases for PUF and refugee grants, language delays, francophones, complex classrooms, but this kind of work is done by humans who are striking in places across this province because they don't feel like they can make ends meet with the salaries on offer, and people who are leaving the jobs because they find the working conditions untenable. And if you talk to school boards behind the scenes, they say this is not our money. Like we're given this money by government. What makes you think that people want to work in these jobs that you're planning to fund?
Well, these are highly rewarding jobs and highly rewarding careers. I think almost everyone that has the opportunity to work with children and work with young individuals in a way that's supporting their growth and development will tell you firsthand just how rewarding that experience is. And I think, the vast majority, if not every single educator, teacher, educational assistant, or other individual that's working in our school settings is there because they really love what they're doing and want to be able to support those individuals and to support those children.
Follow up, Janet?
Yeah, for both Sandra and Marilyn, if you don't mind. The funding formula tweak, although it's some direction towards what you were asking for, there's still a lag for growing school divisions, right? You're not getting 100% of your funding based on projected enrollment. It's still 70%. So how far does this go to addressing the shortfall that you see? So, for example, for Sandra, like how many students would remain unfunded for the coming year? And what's your ideal? What would you actually like to see?
Thank you for the question, Janet. In reference to your question, I would have to say, while I can't give you exact numbers, we can give you those numbers later today. But in reference to when you say what would we like to see, I think the question earlier was also asked, is it enough money? Is it ever enough money? So I come as a teacher, an administrator, an educator. I know that the more money we receive, the more money we can spend, and we can certainly find places for it. That being said, part of our advocacy was returning to a per pupil funding for sure. But again, seeing that we've gone from a weighted moving average to this 2-year now is certainly going to provide the stability that we were looking for. And so the increase to the education budget, budget 2025, is certainly speaks to the investment that the ministry, the education minister, and the ministry government of Alberta is making towards education. So because we continue our conversations and because they are listening, I'm confident, I believe we're all confident that we're going to get to where we need to be, because we want to ensure the success of our students and that they reach their full potential and that they thrive. Thank you.
So Janet, I can add a couple of comments regarding the funding formula. So when the weighted moving average was introduced, that was as a result of some fairly significant consultation that the Alberta government took with stakeholders. And of course, then the pandemic hit, and that changed everything in education. And so to really understand the full effect of the weighted moving average, we needed a little bit of time. What we realized in fairly short order was that, in particular, the weighted moving average was not serving well those boards that have significant increasing enrollment because the funding would lag behind. And while it did offer some support to boards that either had flat or declining enrollment. So our advocacy from the Alberta School Boards Association to government has been, can we take another look at the funding formula? And so now with the 2-year rolling average rather than 3, we see that potentially there will be some improvement in terms of meeting the needs of those boards that have particular enrollment challenges with fast growing enrollment. But also what we see in this budget are additional grants specific to our rural communities that will also provide them some additional support. So like I said earlier in my remarks, we will work with our members to assess the funding formula and have a better understanding of how that's going to impact each of our boards. And we'll, of course, continue to work with the Minister and the Government of Alberta just to ensure that students are supported in the way they need to be in order to be successful.
All right. Seeing no others on the line and no others at the media mic, I'm going to call that a wrap. Thank you very much. Let's give another round of applause for this great investment into education. Thank you.